Hi, everyone, and welcome to this month's MYgration Films Watch Party. My name is Lori Turchin. I am the film curator for the Fusion Fest film MYgration Films. We are now accepting applications. If you go to fusionfest.org/film for filmmakers, click on filmmaker. And if you want to tell your story, click on share your story. But this month, our watch party is celebrating Asian Pacific Islander Month, and we have a couple of films to show you. The first one up is Hanalei about Brandy Baker, who has a very interesting story to tell. Are you there, Brandy?
Aloha.
Hey, aloha. Happy Pacific Islander Month.
It's exciting.
Is there any special celebration you do or anything?
So not really, except for I've felt an influx on people supporting my business in a huge way.
Oh, that's
It's been
great.
really lovely.
So, like, have people asked you to show up at, like, different functions that are going on around town to represent, like, Native?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. Very
Yeah,
nice.
we have quite a few pop-ups that we're doing at different local businesses and then private events as well that want to feature Asian and Pacific Islander um,
Nice.
vendors.
Now, you were born where?
I was born in California.
Okay. So, how do you come to your Hawaiian roots?
So my father was fully Hawaiian. He was from the island of Kauai, and my mother was German and Ukrainian, and so that's hence
Talk
this.
about a mix.
Yeah. So it's my father was Kanaka, which means he was from the island. He was a native and indigenous. So it's been exciting to learn so much over the last few years.
Now, you told me a great story that I'm bummed didn't make it into your film about how the Asian Pacific Islander community embraced your dad when you brought him here. Could you tell us a little about that?
Oh my goodness. So when we brought my dad to Orlando, um, so many people reached out to me and they sent packages. They showed up to the Shave Ice trailer, giving gifts and just really supporting, what I was doing, but also supporting my dad. And we had a luau for him. And there was probably about 100 people that showed up back and forth throughout the night, just coming and
Wow.
supporting and sharing the aloha with him. It was pretty amazing how the Shave Ice trailer is actually the way we got him here because I'm
Right. That's
retired
how it
and
started. Yeah.
yeah, I retired and I needed a little extra income to hopefully take my dad back to his island, and that's why we even started the Shave Ice business was just to kind of do that and to take those funds and put it towards giving him kind of like a send off to his island.
A homecoming.
Yeah,
Nice. Well,
beautiful.
I think that's a great cue to go ahead and play the film. Hanalei by
Absolutely.
Tara McKenzie. Okay. I think they had the wrong movie queued up. Technical glitches, it happens. If everything went perfect, life wouldn't be so fun.
One of the neat things that the film student did is she had me say my dad's name for the first time after he had passed. And
Oh,
so that's
wow.
captured on this film. And my sister's, it's a great moment of healing for all of us. So I
Well,
can
that's
appreciate that.
fantastic. All right, here we go.
I worked for Hanalei Shave Ice, and it was something that was born out of love for my dad. It was kind of adventure for me to kind of learn my background and my upbringing. Something that just kind of captured my attention in a trip to Hawaii. I went there and I went to the island of Kauai, where I'm originally from, my family's originally from, and I fell in love with the culture and everything. And I kind of was taken away from that because my parents had divorced when I was young, so I didn't really learn a lot about my Hawaiian side until later in life. So it's Hanalei shave ice. It's authentic Hawaiian shave ice, and Hawaiians call it shave, Shave, not shaved with the D. And what it is, it's just a hand cranked ice confection that I use a lot of all natural toppings and create these little pretty, I call them ice sculptures because they're kind of beautiful. Take all the beautiful colors of fruits and you turn it into something that's an edible treat. You eat with your eyes before you eat with your spoon, so that works out. And I've been doing it for a little while now, and I really love it. It's fun. It's rewarding. It also connects me to my roots and my family and my heritage, and it also helps me to be able to explain to other people, a little bit about Hawaii and some of the sweeter things that are from the island, and bring in interesting treats from the islands. When I first started it, it was just mainly to connect with my culture, my background, and then also to get my dad to his island. Don Nolan Kauai Wells. Sorry. He is going by Gunny because he was a gunny sergeant in the Marines, and he was most proud of that. Of anything he did, he was proud of being a U.S. Marine. And if you know Marines, they're all proud of being a Marine. So my dad that was his favorite thing, was just serving and being of service to people. So he was a true Hawaiian. He loved his island more than anything. So he's very missed right now. Having a conversation that's saying, "Hey, Dad, I'm doing this," and he's connected to it, and I'm connected to it. It was one of those moments where it filled me up. You need those moments with your parents, I think. So it was very cool. But he was mainly like, "That's so cool." So then the machine, I told my dad about it, and he was like, "That sounds just like the one I used to have." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's cool, Dad." And then I actually started researching, and these are very rare. There's only like really 8 left in circulation of this particular kind because there was a recall. So then I researched even further. And then I researched the grocery store, and the grocery store is the same grocery store my father used to work for. So I was like, it was kind of my Moana moment where I was like, wow, this is probably the machine. And I showed it to my dad, and he was like, that's it. And it was kind of a exciting and emotional time because we were like, no way this could possibly be, but it is. It's the same machine. So it came to me, and I feel like that's really special. You buy something and you don't really know what kind of work needs to go into it, but we figured it out. We painted it and put a stainless steel countertop in there, 3-compartment sink, and a freezer, and put up some of my favorite things. It's kind of like my little she shed. So I got Audrey Hepburn pictures in there, and a picture of my Frenchie. To connect back with my ancestors in such a huge way. It's a gift.
Wow, it's so powerful. I mean, that when you told me that story, that was the same exact machine that your dad used, I was just like, "Oh my god," like,
It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story. We'll talk more about the experience. I'll let you compose yourself, and we'll bring Matthew and Carluca in. You guys there? Hi, guys.
Sorry.
How are you tonight?
Good.
So, Matthew, what is it being a Kiwi in Orlando?
It's interesting. There's actually a few Kiwis in Orlando. I don't know many of them that well, but there's a few of us around. So, but we are kind of a rare breed, a little bit like the bird itself, which is the Kiwi itself. The Kiwi bird is an endangered species, so there's an element of singularity to it. But it's a very long way away from New Zealand, so the experience of having Carluca and his team come and shoot this movie was great for me, because it kind of was a moment where I could sort of think about my journey from New Zealand to here eventually, and all of the things that are important to me about New Zealand. So it was great. I really enjoyed taking the 12 hours or whatever it was that we spent filming the movie, and just kind of thinking about my family and New Zealand and what makes it special, and just sort of reflecting on elements of those, that culture that I've kind of kept with me and think about often.
Carluca, how did what did you get from Matthew? I mean, was he fully open and shared his culture, or is there any boundaries you had to kind of overcome? Or
it was very interesting, because I know when we started talking and trying to figure out what story to tell, or what sections of his life to focus on. He's interviewed a lot of people throughout his years, and we're trying to figure out like interesting moments, and he is like blank at that point. He's like, it's become so natural, so normal to interview like celebrities, or maybe just any other person, that for him it just didn't click at that point. And
the interviewer becomes the interviewed, and kind of
yeah. So then slowly we started getting into like things that he probably didn't think were interesting, and we're like, oh, that's interesting, let's put it in the film. Yeah, let's talk about it. Right. And then we got more into the actual like living in the country, in New Zealand, and what's so interesting about it, or people don't know much about the island itself. So talking a little bit about what life is like there is going to be interesting for a lot of people, because it's different, right? And it all came together, and then of course he has a beautiful family, so we focused on that too, and it all worked out, and we put together basically, like Matt said, like a little mini biography of what's been his life and what is right now. So it worked out well.
Well, with no further ado, let's show a Kiwi in Orlando.
My name is Matthew Petty. I'm a radio reporter for WMFE FM in Orlando, but people say I don't have a face for radio, if you know what I mean. So I'm from New Zealand. That's not New Zealand, that's Australia. Where's New Zealand? Sometimes we get left off the map. Yeah, that's New Zealand. But you know what? I wasn't born in New Zealand, I was born in Canada. But then we moved back to New Zealand when I was only 6 months old. And I spent most of my childhood in New Zealand, but actually then we moved to the United Kingdom, lived in England for 2 years, and then moved back to New Zealand. And then I lived in Japan for 2 years. And oh yeah, that's where I met my wife. So she's from Orlando, but her parents are Indian. Oh, and I forgot to say, I studied in Canada. Yeah, that's right. I lived in Canada for 1.5 years. Then we moved to Orlando, and we got married in Orlando. Then we moved back to New Zealand, and actually that's where we had our first daughter, who was the only genuine Kiwi in the family. And we moved back to Orlando. Sorry, confusing myself. I grew up in the South Island of New Zealand. it's a very beautiful country. We would go for hiking trips in the weekends, skiing trips in the wintertime, have beautiful unspoiled beaches on our doorstep, camping and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like an outdoor paradise. Now, the food culture of New Zealand, I mean, it's kind of comfort food. I'm going to show you a little bit of New Zealand's classic cuisine. I'm going to make a Pavlova. Now, this is a New Zealand dessert that I learned how to make quite a long time ago, but it's something I really love to make with my family. Put this apron on because I don't want to mess up my nice all black shirt, the national rugby team of New Zealand. It's actually quite simple. I'm going to take some eggs, take about 4 of these. Ooh. I'm going to put the egg white into the bowl there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is start adding my sugar. Okay, and sprinkle this in little by little to get them into a nice kind of foamy consistency. So ideally, this will turn into a delicious meringue. All right, so that is ready to go in the oven. I'm going to slide it right in. And that's it. And in about an hour's time, we should have a delicious Pavlova coming out of this oven, hopefully. You know, even though we speak English in New Zealand, we actually call things by different names and words you probably wouldn't hear in the United States. So, for example, lolly is what you guys would call candy. Jandals, which are commonly known as flip-flops. Togs, I guess you would call that a bathing suit here. And a chili bin is probably something you wouldn't have heard before. That is what Americans call a cooler. Also, a Kiwi can be 3 things. Can be a person or a citizen of New Zealand. It can also be a kiwi fruit, or it could be a bird as well, which is actually, oh look, there's a kiwi right there. Take a look at that. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's one here. It's the national bird of New Zealand. They run around. They're endangered. There's another kiwi there. I forgot about the Pavlova. It's in the oven. Oh, I hope it's not burnt. Oh, I hope it's not burnt. I hope it's not burnt. Ooh. It's okay, I didn't burn it. Oh, a bit of whipped cream. Probably wouldn't be putting blueberries on a kiwi Pavlova, but that's all right. Strawberries, some raspberries. Pavlova, the New Zealand dessert. I'm Matthew Petty, and today on Intersection... So I'm a reporter and host for WMFE. It's the NPR affiliate in Orlando. What I do is I host a public affairs show called Intersection. We focus on current events, politics, the arts, sports, a bit of culture, some music as well. But essentially, my job revolves around figuring out what the big stories of the week are, and then figuring out who in the Central Florida area we want to talk to kind of bring those stories to life. I covered things like rugby matches, did some reporting on the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand national rugby team, cricket matches, and then I've also covered some serious breaking news stories that have been a bit uncomfortable. I was fortunate enough to fly to Antarctica as part of a reporting trip. This was the 50th anniversary of the New Zealand Antarctic base, Scott Base. We flew there on an American US Air Force military transport plane. We flew down there with Prime Minister of New Zealand at the time, Helen Clark, and Sir Edmund Hillary, who was a very famous New Zealander. His face is on the $5 bill. He is one of the 2 people who made it to the top of Mount Everest for the first time. Just an incredible experience, from the history of the place to just the kind of bizarre beauty of the landscape. The great thing about Orlando is it's very diverse. As a journalist, as a person who is just kind of curious about people, it's a really fascinating place to live and work. I mean, like, a lot of stories you wouldn't necessarily think about end up having some kind of connection to Florida.
So, excuse me. So let me ask Brandy and Matthew something. You know, I pre-produce all these movies before the filmmakers ever meet you guys. And I really try to prepare you as best I can for the experience. I'll start with you, Brandy. Did I do a good job? Were you ready for it, or was there something surprising in the, talk about your experience?
Well, one of the most surprising things was how talented this young lady was that, came and asked me so many questions. She really dove into who I was, and there's a lot of me that didn't make it to the film, but we sat and we had a really good conversation, and I think that we became friends. And so I think whenever you're interviewing somebody, Matthew, you probably know more than anybody, having a good rapport with them is really important. And it was just really lovely to sit there and be able to share part of my story. Satara was part of my healing process too, which was something that we didn't expect, because whenever I signed up to do the migration films, my father was still here and he passed right before, you know, like, it was like right in there. So,
wow.
So like having her come over and sit down and, you know, sit and chat with me was kind of a beautiful thing. And so I don't think you can prepare somebody for just sharing, you know, their part of the story. And I think
Right.
it's nice that she did.
You, Matthew. Now you're usually the person who interviews the people. How did it feel being the person being interviewed?
I mean, it was kind of a strange experience. You're right; it's a bit unusual to be on the other side of the microphone, but it's good. I think probably more journalists should do it, because it's good to just sort of sit in the shoes or the seat of the person who you're interviewing for a change and kind of think about things from their perspective. So I enjoyed that, and like Brandy, you know, the Carluka and his team, they're a great bunch of filmmakers.
Who
I mean,
I just have to add, their name is the Fusion Brothers, and
Yeah.
I just love that. And they've won the grand prize the last 2 years in a row. It was like karma. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean they're amazingly talented. You know, Carluka and his brother and the rest of the team who worked on the movie are amazingly talented group. I will say this too: watching all of the movies at the premiere, and just sort of thinking the amount of work that went into them and the tight timeline, it was really impressive just to see like the stories on display and how people were able to craft those narratives within the time frame they had. Because I know they were basically working around the clock to get these things produced. So I just thought it was a really great experience, and it was interesting. In some ways, it was good because I could kind of relax. Like usually, if I'm putting together an interview or a project, then you know I know how much work goes into these things. Not so much film because I'm more radio, so it cuts out the film element. But still, it was nice to be able to sort of walk away from at the end of it and think, I don't have to do anything more with this. I'm just going to leave it in these guys' hands and see what comes out the other end.
Now, Carluka, you've done this 2 years in a row. You did it. You know, it's not easy to just meet someone from a completely different background and just delve into their stuff, get up all in their junk, you know, like, how do you do that? You know?
Honestly, I just start asking questions to be, yeah, that's it. Like, we're in it, right? So I'm gonna start asking questions because I gotta figure out who you are, right? And we do that throughout like 2 to 3 hours tops, right? The first time we meet. So I'm gonna start questioning the person, and I started asking Matt multiple questions about his life, and you know what? There were some areas. It happened with him. It happened with Ola as well, the one we did the year before, where we're getting in a direction where you can feel like, no, that's not the right direction to go to. So we backed up and let's go in a different direction. And some people want to tell the story from a different angle, or they want to just tell some part of their stories. They might not be ready to tell the others, right? So you kind of follow the rhythm and the pace and see what happens, where it takes us, and then at some point I start kind of looking, okay, so we got this interesting thing that we can talk about, these two, let's try to figure out how we can film everything in one day and how you can kind of tell us that story in one day, and we go from there. So
how delicious is a Pavlova?
It's pretty good. I mean, it looks, I was actually thinking, Brandy, while I was watching you put together some of those creations with the sort of fruit and the cream, like
yeah. You know,
there's probably some commonalities there.
Absolutely.
I want to know the temperature because you said it's an hour. I want to know what temperature, like.
Yeah, well, actually, okay. So the key is basically it's just a giant meringue, but the key is you gotta heat the oven up pretty hot and then you drop it down, so it's kind of low and slow when you actually bake it.
All right.
Okay, so it's four egg whites.
I can't remember the recipe off the top of my head. It's basically just egg whites and sugar. You can make a vegan version. Use the liquid out of a can of chickpeas. And
okay.
Yeah.
No way.
It's a little tricky to get it to kind of set properly, but
right.
Aquafaba, basically bean water. But
I'm on it. I'm on it.
So in the video, you said that it's not traditional to put fruit on top of it.
Oh no, I was just making a quip about blueberries because blueberries are like the archetypal American berry, and typically you'll see like kiwi fruit on a pavlova, bananas, but you can put there's no rules. You put whatever you want on it.
Right, right. Yeah, it looks delicious. It looks delicious. So
love a good
how
vegetable.
long have each of you been here in Orlando? Carluca?
About 20, almost 25 years.
Matthew?
Let me think. We moved back here in December 2010, so it's like 11,
12 years.
Yeah, coming up on 12 years.
And how about you, Brandy?
About 13, and the military brought me here.
Okay. I've lived here over 30. I know for me, this town has grown exponentially. What do you guys think? I mean, when I moved here, I mean, I learned what anti-Semitism was for the first time in my life at 30,
True.
and I think we've just come such a long way from there here, especially in Orlando, that we've become a much more diverse and open place. Could any of you speak to how you've seen Orlando's changed? Brandy, I'll go with you first.
Well, I've seen it. I used to work for a very large company that I managed here. And when I first got here, the kitchen was one way, and then the front of the house was a different way. And I actually am a person who didn't agree with that. And I think that everybody should have the same opportunities. And so I spoke up about that with this it's a giant company, and they embraced it. And I think over the last at least 9 years, I've seen a huge push towards, being more diverse in the workplace. And, 25 years ago when I started in the workplace, it wasn't like that. Even me getting into a kitchen as a young person wasn't really available to me as a female. And
Right.
So I've just seen just so much, and the diversity in Mills 50, where I currently am at, is so awesome.
Absolutely. That area
like
is
the food is just
the
like
food is amazing in that area. Oh my God, you will not go hungry in the Mills 50 district. That's
no. And so I feel like it's changed a lot over the last few years, and even with the Pulse, when the Pulse shooting happened, I've seen a huge push in other directions here as well. So I'm excited to see what the next 10 years holds for Orlando.
Me too. How about you, Matthew? How have you seen Orlando change and grow in the 12 years you've been here?
I mean, it's definitely a community that's growing very fast. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but it's one of these places where just scores of people are coming here every single day and setting down roots here. So there's that. I mean, you can just the amount of traffic on I-4 that just seems to get exponentially larger every time.
I still haven't figured out those express lanes. I'm like, how do I get off? What if there's no way for me to get off? I don't get it. How do I get on it? How do I get off it? I'm so
yeah. I mean, some things never change though, right? Like the I-4 iStore, that's always going to be there. It's never going to open. So we can take some comfort in that, I suppose. But just echoing what Brandy says, I do think this is it's a very diverse community. I think it's getting more diverse. That's one of the things that makes it a really exciting place to be a reporter, because there are so many connections to Orlando and Central Florida. Like as I said in the movie we just watched, many big national or sometimes even international stories have some kind of connection to Orlando, whether you like it or not. And that's partly because of our status as a hub of tourism. And of course, there are good and bad things about that. There's untold stories about the impacts on the economy, both good and bad, about the fact that we have this kind of massive tourism hub in our midst. But I think, in many ways, the community is changing for the better. I think just being part of this and seeing what you all have put together with Fusion Fest, that's an example of the good things about Orlando. Like there is this very vibrant and vital kind of artistic heart
absolutely
at the center of the city and the center of this community. And I think that seems to be getting stronger, if anything. So that's a good thing.
What about you, Carluca?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky to live in Orlando and experience all of the diversity that is here, right? I mean, if you're open-minded, you're in the right place, right? Because I mean, you get the chance to see or talk to people with a different perspective in something that maybe is different to you, but you get that possibility to talk to other people from all different places and see their point of view, and maybe sometimes that will open your mind to different things, maybe not, but to live in a place that has people from so many places in the world, and that happens. I mean, I think it happened because Disney, right? I mean, they have Epcot where they have all the
Right,
houses, so
right.
people come here, and then the tourists too, and then they stay, and then they right.
Well, you
So
know, it's funny because so many people, including myself, when you ask them about how they ended up in Orlando, they're like, "Well, I was only supposed to be here for like a month or two, like I was only supposed to be here for 9 months, 32 years ago, and
Totally.
that seems to happen a lot here in Orlando. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know. It's like you go there for a brief stay and no one ever sees you in another state.
you're
It's
right.
true.
So
It's
and
true.
I remember talking to Matt the day we were filming. I'm like, what one of the coolest thing about living in a place like this, in a city like this, right, where there's so much diversity, is the possibility to eat any type of food you want, right,
Uh,
without having to go to another city like New York, or maybe go to that country. You want a French restaurant, you can find one that is pretty close to it,
mhm.
and any Asian restaurant, like Latin American restaurants, food. So you get that. So that's kind of cool.
Well, to tie in Fusion Fest with that, every month we have Diversitastic Dining. I think this next month, Alex, remind me, is Cuba. Am I right? In any case, go to fusionfest.org and look for the Diversitastic Dining. It happens every month. We go to a different country and eat their food. I always bring a taste tester. I bring He was like when we went to China and there was tripe, I was like, "Nah, you can try the tripe first." And she so but it's really a lot of fun. We have usually the entertainment of the different heritage that we're experiencing, and I got to tell you, you get like a pretty good amount of food, and it's usually pretty delicious. I have to say. So yeah, Diversitastic Dining. We have a lot of other events that go on throughout the month: second Tuesdays, daytimes, night times. We also have applications open for all the different areas of Fusion Fest. I can't believe it's May already. It's flipping me out very much so. That we just have like 3 or 4 months till we're back into contest mode. So I'm already in contest mode. So again, for those of you that are interested, www.fusionfest.org/film. I want to thank Carluca and Matthew for Kiwi in Orlando, and I'm going to try and make a Pavlova.
Me too.
Yeah, I can send you guys a recipe for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want the recipe. Thank you all for coming. Aloha. Yes, you say aloha. Aloha. And thank you for coming. Thank you in the viewing world for coming to see us. And for those of you that are watching the archive, thank you. And thank you for helping us celebrate AAPI month. So everyone have a great night, and thank you for coming, and we'll see you next. Now, I don't know if anyone realized, but it's the third Tuesday night of every month now instead of the second. So we'll see you next month.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Bye.